Okay, biblical Hamites. So there's Japeth and Shem and Ham, and that's the three sons. And of course, he gets cursed. Well, actually, the fourth son gets cursed. He doesn't get cursed, but the Canaanites get cursed. Well, we found out a long time ago that the Canaanites are all Caucasian species, but Ham, who is he? Well, looking at this picture here, hopefully y'all can see it well in there. This light blue area right here is Shemites. You can see it right down here. Semitin. It's a German map from 1932. I could go with a bunch of different ones. It just popped up. So it's got an Aryan race, a Ham, and a Semite race. It doesn't have Japeth. Well, so what's the deal with that? Well, they're saying that all of Europe is the Aryan race, but also the area in between India and the Semitic race here on the Sinai Peninsula is also Aryan. And then everything on the top right here going across close to the shore of the Mediterranean is also Aryan. So basically the whole Mediterranean is swallowed up, and then the gray that's behind that, which we're really going to pay attention to, is Hamites. They say they're Hamites, right? Okay, so they show this boundary here, and then you see this is the Sudan area. They called the whole thing pretty much that, and then the Bantu area down here at the bottom. And also Australia has a very similar color. And let's look down here at the scale. Really, if you look here, Afrikaanisch, Niger, or Niger, or, like Schwarzenegger, yeah, means black man running. Anyhow, Hottentotten, and that's really the bottom peninsula right there. So the Hottentots had already gotten established there, but they show Melaneser, Negrito, Australia. Negrito doesn't show up in here, but they do show the Melanor here, way over in the islands of Java and New Guinea, and ideally black people are over there, and then you don't find them in between, and you find them there. It's an odd thing. People need to look into it a whole lot more, but apparently primordial times, these two connected, and of course these two connected, and maybe somehow they got a boat across there a long, long time ago, or whenever the Great Flood happened, people got flooded and floated around on stuff and ended up there. Who knows? But because they've never built a boat that was seaworthy, either of these cultures, so it doesn't make any sense. New Guineans do now, but when we look at any of their ancient stuff, they apparently had boats that could get from island to island, but you couldn't get out in open sea. I mean, if you did, that thing would just get scuttled real quick. So anyhow, Hamites. So let's look at Hamites here real quick, and what they actually say about them. Hamites, from the biblical Ham, is a historical term in ethnology and linguistics for a division of the Caucasian race, and the group of related languages for these populations spoke. Wait, hold on, people. Hold on. I'm going to go through this, and I'll show you the Egyptians, because that was in that blue, right? I told you to watch it. So the Caucasian race and everything. So the appellation Hamitic was applied to the Berber, Kushite, and Egyptian branches of the Afro-Asiatic language family, which together with the Semitic branch was thus formerly labeled Hamito-Semitic. However, since the three Hamitic branches have not been shown to form an exclusive or monophyletic or phylogenetic unit of their own, separate from the other Afro-Asiatic languages, linguists no longer use the term in this sense. So each of these branches is instead now regarded as an independent subgroup of the larger Afro-Asiatic family. But beginning in the 19th century, scholars generally classified the Hamitic race as a subgroup of the Caucasian race, along with the Semitic race, thus grouping the non-Semitic populations native to North Africa and the Horn of Africa, including the ancient Egyptians. According to the Hamitic theory, this Hamitic race was superior to or more advanced than Negroid populations of the sub-Saharan Africa. It, in its most extreme form in the writings of C.C. Spelligman, this theory asserted that virtually all significant achievements in African history were the work of Hamites who had migrated into Central Africa and pastoralists, bringing new customs, languages, technologies, administration skills with them. In the earlier 20th century, theoretical models of Hamitic languages and Hamitic races were intertwined. This nomenclature gradually fell out of favor between 1960s and 1980s, in large part due to its perceived association with colonial paternalism. The populations of Hamitic ancestral stock are now more commonly known as Caucasoid. The concept of the curse of Ham. The term Hamitic originally referred to the people said to be descended from Ham, one of the sons of Noah, according to the Bible. Now, according to the book of Genesis, after Noah became drunk and Ham became dishonored his father, upon awakening, Noah pronounced a curse upon Ham's youngest son, not his eldest, for some strange reason, Canaan, stating that his offspring would be the servant of servants and Ham's 4 sons. Canaan fathered the Canaanites, while Mizraim fathered the Egyptians, Cush the Cushites, and Phut the Libyans. This is what the Bible says. During the Middle Ages, believing Jews, Christians, and Muslims incorrectly considered Ham to be the ancestor of all Africans. Noah's curse on Canaan, as described in Genesis, began to be misinterpreted by some scholars in Europe as having caused visible racial characteristics in all of Ham's offspring, notably black skin. According to Edith Sanders, the 6th century Babylonian Talmud says that the descendants of Ham are cursed by being black, and it depicts Ham as a sinful man and his progeny as degenerates. Some Arab slave traders used this account of Noah and Ham in the Bible to justify Negro slavery. And later, European and American Christian traders and slave owners adopted a similar argument. And they say European and American Christian, but they don't want to put Jewish because they're Jewish slave traders. I'll show you that in just a second too, and something you really need to look up. Just wait a minute. You really need to look this up. However, the Bible itself indicates that Noah restricted his curse to the offspring of Ham's youngest son, Canaan, whose descendants occupied the Levant, and it was not extended to Ham's other sons who had migrated into Africa, according to Sanders. 18th century theologians increasingly emphasized this narrow restriction and accurate interpretation of the passage as applying to Canaan's offspring. They rejected the curse as a justification for slavery. Now, many versions of this perspective on African history have been proposed and applied to different parts of the continent. The essays below focus on the development of these ideas regarding the people of North Africa, Horn of Africa, and the African Great Lakes. However, Hamitic hypothesis operated in West Africa as well, and they changed greatly over time. So, what we're seeing is that this map model here, the blue people, not the Africans, are these races, and they're Caucasian. Okay? And I don't want to go over this. Y'all can pause this and read the whole thing. I'll give you like 10 seconds to read this right here. This is actually how it gets popularized. This is how it gets turned around that way so people can end up using it for a slavery type of thing. So what they're telling you here is that anybody that had some black in them or white in them and had a look that looked more white, like this, they would consider to be Hamites along with the Egyptians. Okay? But then they decided that now modern genetics and everything, of course, says no. Apart from the relatively late Semitic influence, other civilizations of Africa are the civilizations of the Hamites. Its history is the record of these peoples and their interaction with the 2 other African stocks, the Negro and the Bushman. Whether this influence was exerted by highly civilized Egyptians or by such wider pastorals as are represented by the Beya and Somali, the incoming Hamites were pastoral Europeans arriving wave after wave, better armed as well as quicker-witted than the dark agricultural Negroes. And they didn't actually have agriculture at the time. But this is where they change it. If you'll read this right here before you go into it, they just talk about how it gets twisted and how they change it off, right? So he even kept this thesis unchanged in new editions in the books all the way up to the 60s. But here you get Hamitic types. So let's look at this. It's a white guy. Actually looks almost Greeky or whatever. And then they had these Somalian types, which you can tell there's the Negroid influence really just basically on the lips that they draw into them. But doesn't that look like those Egyptian lips? So it comes out of one strain out of there, that Egyptian lip looking thing. And you see a lot of Persians today with that like funny lips, Persian ladies. And there's this one guy that looks exactly like Akhenaten. I mean, they've cut it in half and put his face up there, and you're like, wow. And he's got those same lips too. It's what really draws it off. And his eyes are set in the same position. But and he's a Persian type dude. So okay, here's what I wanted to show y'all. So Hamiticized. They talk about being Hermeticized, and so they Hamiticize things. I want you to read this. I don't know if you'll be able to read it off of here, but so they're basically saying in this category right here that the first Hamites must have had some Negro influence by marrying Hamitic women, a darker skinned women, and then they pushed those further inland because darker skin wasn't as, they thought they were polluting their blood or whatever, something along that line. Anyhow, keep reading this on. There's a couple of real nice little phrases in here that let you know. Some of the authorities of Masai are included in the Hamitic group, but we have only to compare features of a member of this tribe with a Gala to realize the predominance of the Negro element in the former. The aspect of the pure Hamite differs altogether from those of the Bantu and Negroid races. The portrait of Gala presents no correspondence with the conception usually formed of an African native. The forehead is high, square, low, and receding. The nose is narrow. The nostrils straight and not transverse. The chin is small and slightly pointed. He goes through all this. Hair is long and not woolly. The lips are thinner than those of the Negro and not everted. The expression is intellectual and indicates a type of mind higher than that of the simple Negro. Indeed, except for the color, it could be hard to distinguish from the face of a European. But they distinguish. So let's look at this real quick. What I wanted to show you that's real important is this guy right here. This is a guy that I'm going to go back one page. It seems to have started on the second page, believe it or not. There are 6 pages to this, okay? I think 5 pages, actually. But it's called We Thought They Were White. And this guy right here finally put down the Bible and decided to research slavery. And as soon as he started doing it, he found something totally different about it. Hello and welcome to my website. We Thought They Were White. My name is Dontel Jackson, and like many African Americans, I was brought up in a culture deeply infused with the propaganda designed to lay the blame for all the black race's ills on the white man. But it was not until I began looking into the actual history of blacks, whites, and other races in America that I came to realize that not many, if not most, of the resentment that African Americans harbor regarding our long history of abuse and exploitation has been intentionally misdirected by those who are most responsible for it to shift the blame away from themselves as a people onto the white race who they regard as their enemies. Now, you need to read this. It's amazing. But it implicates kind of who it was that was doing it and how much white people are involved. Out of the 26% and then 88 of that, you would say that there's 4% white people involved to 4 to 6% white people involved, and that's in an after-fact situation. But that's really not the point here at all either. Let's go ahead and let me show you something else. We're going to go to ancient Egyptians, right? Let me show you this. So the Hamites are Caucasian, and here is early dynastic pharaohs. And you really can't say that that looks African at all, and these are early dynastic pharaohs. And so these are your Hamites, right, from the Bible. And the Bible really only mentions 3 races. And there's no way humanly possible for 2 white people to have a black kid. Just like it's impossible for blacks to have a white kid. Although they say now they do, but that's an albino, and an albino is not what we are. We all tan. Even the most pale, red-headed ginger person gets tan, half tanned, and a lot of freckles on them. But I get a real dark tan. White people can work in the sun all day. I don't know where y'all come up with this crazy stuff, but black people get sunburned too. This is what you're seeing the Nubians. You want to see what Nubians are? They're being attacked by these Egyptians. These are your black people here. And while they're running over him with the chariot, here they make them walk behind him and fan him. So at best, they were fan bearers to the Egyptians, who look like this. And you can't begin to say that that looks Negroid in any way. And you can find things that people have photoshopped and tried to spread the noses on and all kinds of silly stuff. But what you can't find is them not hating black people and trying to run over them with chariots. Even King Tut's sandals have Nubians on them, so with every step he crushes them. And I'd like to think that they didn't have a real good rapport with them, much less that they were kings. So compare that to this modern Egyptian lady here and see how she looks very much so like that. You can literally see it. And there's no Negroid features there at all. And look at this man here. I mean, how can you look at something like that and not say that that's not a Caucasian? I mean, without the little thin mustache, I mean, he looks like Enrique or something, but bam, right there. It's one of the only Egyptians you see with a mustache too, and it's real early dynasty. And again, that's a fake hair wig. This guy's got brownish hair. So, everybody's been about tired of this bullshit. And so, there's a real important thing. Let me tell you about it. The idea here is that you're okay with Eskimos not being in the Bible, right? I mean, they're not in the Bible. And you're okay with the people from India not being in the Bible. And in fact, the 3 races that come out are all just that Persian race and stuff, and it really doesn't involve any black people. In fact, it's 1300 whenever you start to see blacks enter and make the Persians darker than they originally even were. But India's not in there. Asia's not in the Bible. North and South American people aren't in the Bible. The Bible used to think the world was flat. Look up Bible Earth model and it'll show you a silly thing with a dome and the earth and the waters above and the waters below, just like it says, and exactly the Earth model that they had, which looks like a terrarium, which we also know is bullshit. So it's one way to show you that the whole Bible is bullshit, because the only people they mention are those 3 and not even black people at all. So the black people are not mentioned in the Bible, much less that they're supposed to be some super Hebrew freak, because you can't get 3 races out of one. And leprosy. Leprosy. That's the stupidest thing in the world. Leprosy causes skin rot. And it causes a lightening of skin and it turns white in that area, but that means nothing. That's not what people have. We don't have leprosy. It's pretty much gone in the world. And yet, we're white. And yet, we find people 60,000 years ago that were white and Caucasian with blue eyes going all around the world. You want to see one? Let's look at one real quick. Here's a hunter-gatherer guy that they found, and they've actually got his genome out of one of his teeth. And whenever they ran it, he looks like this. But the weird thing is, y'all could read this article here. It's called Hunter-Gatherer European Has Blue Eyes and Dark Skin. And it's because his dark skin is like the Egyptians. And their whole theory is that the Caucasians, not in Egypt, not on the equator, would have lighter skin. But yet this guy, they tell you that scientists had thought the first Europeans became fair-skinned soon after they left Africa and moved to the continent about 45 years ago. And it has been assumed that it is something that happens in response going from Africa to higher latitudes where the UV radiation is very low and you need to synthesize vitamin D in your skin. Your skin becomes lighter quite soon, explained the doctor. And it's obvious that this is not the case because this guy's been in Europe for 40,000 years and he still has darkened skin. So it isn't something like that. But no, he's a Caucasian. He looks like this. He has blue-eyed genes too. And they know that he is. You're not going to try to say he's black. So I found a preacher that has totally lost it on his congregation because they keep thinking they were pharaohs and they're the Hebrews, and they tried to they tried to show him the stuff, and he's gone off on it. Watch.
You niggas are crazy. Black people, let me tell y'all something. If you don't ever hear me say preach again, they can kill me tomorrow. Let me tell you something. We're not going to ever get anywhere until we look into the mind of a black man. He doesn't think correctly. I don't care what he is. Most of black people have ever done, they did it here in America under white people's help. When they were in Africa, they didn't do nothing. Black people had Africa, that big old continent over there. They never built one boat that was seaworthy. Not one. There's not one monument in Africa, in all of Africa. I know you're talking about Egypt. Egypt is not Africa.
No, it's not. And it's also not black, as I've just shown you. We're going to have to get over this one day, but the first thing we're going to have to do is quit thinking you taught white people how to bathe in shit. Because right now I could show you 1,000 videos that to this day, the way people act in rural Africa. You don't want to see it. And then what people said in the ancient days, you're like, oh, that wasn't us. You were primitive mud hut dwelling people, and then you were taken into slavery not too long ago, and boom, here you are today.
There are no great cities that were built. Even before the first colonization of white people coming to the shores of Africa or the slave ships, black men built nothing. No sewer system, no houses above one level, and none of them made out of stone. All of them made out of grass and wood. Black men. Problem. You talk about the Hutus and the Tutsis. Look what's going on in Zimbabwe now with Mugabe. We got a problem, black folk. And forget about Zimbabwe and South Africa, Nigeria. Look at what y'all have done in Harlem. You can't even hold on to Harlem. We got a problem. Black folk don't understand the world. You can get mad with me all you want. You can say what you want, but you can't prove me wrong. Now, I'm not saying this because I hate black folk. I'm saying it because I love you enough to tell the truth.